Welcome to West Tigers TV. This is the Coach's Report live from the mic'd up studio in Parramatta. We've got a couple of scratchings tonight. No Junior. He had the misfortune of being out at Shark Park this afternoon. And Rob Senior is on his way from the boys' watch-along at the Summerhill Hotel, where unfortunately the Tigers, dirty afternoon at Shark Park, they go down 52 points to 10. But the main man, Adel Hage, coach, is joining us from his bunker in Queensland. Coach, first off, thank you for joining us after a tough watch, but it's important to front up when things get tough. And as you can see by the look of me tonight, I feel like I played for the Tigers tonight. I'm a bit black and blue, so we're going to have to tough it out, a tough carry the next 45 minutes or so.
Yeah, for me, it's just business as usual. Come turn up, and what we expect from the boys. Basically, moving the next 7 days is what we need to be doing tonight. That's turning up, business as usual, and to get on with it. So yeah, here we are. Let's get it going.
Let's start on a positive though, Coach. Your side, the South Logan Magpies, had an excellent win this afternoon, 28 points to 14 over the Mackay Cutters. Talk us through that. Let's go through every try on that this afternoon. Let's change the change tack.
That was our best performance of the year today, to be honest. But yeah, we got to show them back it up next week. But let's get to the Tigers.
Okay, well, like Coach said, tonight's going to be a little bit different. We will go through the 5 first half tries, but the second half was a little bit of a procession. So Coach has asked me to talk about it or ask him questions more along the lines of what comes ahead in terms of the forced changes and the mindset going forward. Because obviously, Coach, just a main takeaway out of that game, given the amount of possession we turned over in our own half, you've spoken about high completions. I guess no surprise the scoreline blew out like that in the end.
I'm not going to say no surprises, because I still think we could have been a little bit more resilient defensively. Absolutely no doubt about that. Today is a really valuable lesson. I actually just got a text message from Anthony Milford, because him and I were joking before the game about the Tigers today, because he said we're going to go on a slippery slide after Jerome signed for PNG. That he's just texting me now telling me. But yeah, look, I would have loved to have seen a bit more resilience, and I'm sure the coaching staff, that'll be the message. But yeah, we learned a valuable lesson about competing for 80 minutes today. There was a few things that we couldn't control, but that's all part of being able to show that little bit of resilience. And yeah, the back end of the game was definitely disappointing, to be honest.
The things you can't control, Coach, though, are injuries. We already had some key ones going into the game, but to lose Adam in the first 10 minutes and then to see Samuela carry it off late, that's potentially 2 big blows going forward for the next however long.
Yeah, there are obviously reasons, but never going to be used as excuses. I mean, that's just the current trend in the NRL at the moment. I think we've been pretty lucky over the last 4 or 5 weeks where we've been able to benefit from that from opposition teams. So, yeah, it's just part of the challenge for us. It's always been a challenge for us when we talked about the start of the year, what our squad looks like, and whether we'd be able to handle that sort of adversity. Those injuries today, they're important ones, but yeah, I think the ones we learn a valuable lesson about how important our 1 and 9 were today, didn't we?
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure Anthony Milford was influential in your win this afternoon, Coach, but maybe he's got a crystal ball, because those couple of injuries are certainly going to hurt. But let's dig into the game itself. First 5 minutes, Cronulla probably have a strong couple of sets. Expected them to come out with a bit of an ambush after a heavy loss last week, but they opened the scoring in the 5th minute, a bomb from Braden Trindle, and Tavana goes up, knocks the ball on, and they score in the corner. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, Cronulla did a really good job early on in the game of dominating field position. You could tell there was an emphasis from their end to make sure they're giving us the football in the right parts of the field. They have obviously got a little bit of knowledge about that right corner early in that first half, with the sun being in the eyes of young Tavana, and then they were able to capitalise. And I, to be honest with you, that's the sort of bounces that were happening all game. I mean, I think you do earn that sort of luck, but yeah, throughout the game, it didn't stop right from the first minute to the 80th minute where all the bounces of the ball were going Cronulla's way. But I think we can be better to scramble there. But they were off to a good start.
Junior did mention that in a text to us during the game. He said the sun was really a factor in that first half and that they played to it. And obviously, always very windy conditions at Shark Park. But before we speak about the next try. Speak about young Tavana, because I think you sort of almost predicted this. You said the fans have been on Macassini's back at times and they've been on Luke's back, and it was inevitable that a young player occasionally is going to have a game like that today. And the Sharks went after him, and unfortunately, I think he made 5 or 6 errors, but he did keep competing till the end. He caught 2 or 3 bombs in that last 15 or 20 minutes. He didn't give up.
Yeah, I mean, like I've said before, these guys are humans, and especially the young ones. They're kids. We expect them to be perfect every single week. I know I've probably a bad habit for me at the moment, but I'm reading a lot of social media. Like someone criticised Benji for putting him in the environment they put him in today, and I'm sitting there going, "Well, hang on, we weren't saying that." On Easter Monday, probably the biggest game of the year so far for us, and it was one of our better players. So yeah, look, it's just again, it's all a part of the journey of being a young player coming into the NRL, playing what is that his third game today.
Mm.
So yeah, you pick it. For me, you pick him next week and you go again.
Just a question I've got, because he's obviously an outstanding aerial leaper, but like, would you always be encouraging your winger to go up with that same sort of flair in terms of defensive bombs rather than bombs where you're actually trying to score and attack the try line? Because some of those bombs were landing 10 or 15 out. Do you still want someone to always compete on them rather than just letting the ball bounce or letting Cronulla try and catch the ball and tackle them on the last?
Yeah, I think today was confidence. It was got nothing to do with skill set. We know he's very good in the air. We know he's got a really high vertical that he can leap above everybody. So yeah, I think today just come down to confidence, to be honest.
10th minute, coach, it was the Sharks' turn to drop a bomb, and the Tigers put on a lovely set play from the scrum. The halves combine. Beautiful ball from Jerome onto Adam Dewey, who powers his way over.
I will apologise. I don't know if you can tell my voice is a little bit croaky. So
We're all battered and bruised today, coach, but you'll soldier on.
Yeah, I'm struggling. Yeah, beautiful scrum move. Beautiful direction by Jerome on the back of the scrum.
I'll go, coach.
Excuse me. No, it's okay. Yeah, and you could tell early in the game there was a bit of a target on Talakai from our perspective, and we were able to turn him inside out. And as much as that try was a really good one, but it was pretty costly, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Just on that sort of play, is that a sort of play you work on every week at training, a scrum play, or is it something you might identify against Cronulla, or it could be either?
Well, it's a bit of a variation of what we've used early in the year. Usually Jareem's the one running that sweep line. But you can tell they've made that little bit of adjustment. Normally, Jerome sort of carries the ball and skips to the outside. Today, he actually carried the ball and sort of run a more of an unders line, trying to get to the inside shoulder of the A defender out of the scrum. Which I think the strategy of that was, let's get Talakai to make some decisions and get him to turn in, which they did really, really well. And yeah, Adam benefits from that. So I think that was a good hit back from us.
Speaking of Adam, obviously shocking seeing him not carted off the field, but taken off. Looked like a classic either dislocation or AC joint injury. I was watching the game at a crowded pub. Was there any updates either during the game? I saw him sitting on the bench.
Yeah, there was nothing official, but yeah, the understanding was that he dislocated his shoulder. Was mentioned in the post game, and I'm sure if you check the what's the guy, the NRL physio, usually he gives pretty good updates and gets it right most times. So it'll be interesting to find out exactly what the situation is. But from our perspective, I think that's probably one of the few positions, as much as we missed Adam, that we do have a bit of depth there. So that's not it's not going to be as big a loss as some of the others have been.
Okay, well, Jock Madden got his opportunity into the fire early without him going off, and we actually make it 10 points to 6 in the 15th minute. Beautiful try, coach, about 65 metres out. A shift left again, a lovely ball from Jerome, puts a barnstorming Samuel Afainu through a gap and finds Taylor May, who just runs 50 metres to score unopposed.
Yeah, it's going to sound crazy. It's probably one of the reasons why I sort of look at that game and sort of almost write it off from my perspective, because the reality is when there was a bit of a balance of possession and we were doing what we've come to know of our team early in the year and complete our sets and dominate possession at certain stages, we were able to penetrate that right edge of the Sharks, which have shown a lot of vulnerability the first couple of weeks. And again, targeting that again this week, they actually did a really good job to get on the outside of the 3-man for the back rower, which means we actually skinned them defensively really, really well there. And Samuela just punches straight through the line, and good support play from Taylor.
Just Jerome's performance. I mean, there's no point really analysing that second half because we just didn't even get over halfway. We had no ball, but he looked sharp on that left-hand side. I thought last week against Canberra, that left-hand side was starting to form some really good combination there.
Yeah, I thought he was probably one of our best players, to be honest. Yeah, that whole left edge I thought played really, really well. I mean, they didn't concede anything on that side of the field. Yeah, that's no coincidence with Taylor and Jerome coming back to that left-hand side of the field has been really good defensively, but everything good out of our attack come from out of his hands. So yeah, he was great today.
All right, Coach. Well, again, in the 20th minutes, the Sharks hit back. It was our turn to make another error in our own 20, which was a bit of the theme of the day. They put on a scrum play. I think Nico Hines sort of runs at a 45-degree angle and finds the space between Jock Madden and Toa. Was that a defensive error by one of those boys?
It was a couple of parts to it. If you look before the scrum is even being set, or while the scrum is being set, Stafford actually has his hands on his hips. And body language was really, really poor. So that to me was already a red flag when the scrum's being fed. And put yourself in the opposition shoes where your eyes are lighting up looking at a centre. You know, what was it, 20 minutes into the game, and he's got his hands on his hips at a scrum. So he wasn't postured up and ready to defend. So that was disappointing. Excuse me again. Yeah, I think
Jock?
they need to show much better line speed there to get high off the line. But yeah, I mean, I can't blame anyone but Stafford there. He's just got to be up square and make a tackle there.
You did send in your notes for the preview during the week that the sort of game the Sharks would be looking for was that basketball style of game, which is high scoring and end to end, and we had to sort of turn the game into a grind. Is that what you mean by sort of red flags? The fact that it was sort of 4 tries in the first 20 minutes, 2 each. It was a style of game they wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from our perspective, I think we lost a little bit of patience early in the game. We tried to throw some haymakers back to them. And then obviously as the scoreline started to creep away from us, I thought we tried to, and saying that, it's probably one of those things where we've encouraged ourselves to push the boundaries in regards to especially our offloads. But yeah, our execution on that wasn't really good today. So yeah, I just think we didn't show we showed a lack of patience today, but in the first half we made some silly errors, so probably on for the back of that as well.
Yeah, speaking of, in the 32nd minute, the Sharks extend their lead to 18-10. It was an offload deep in his own half by Taylor May, which went astray. The Sharks scooped up and they score off the next set. Blake Brayley was that good identification by him, an easy short ball, or it looked easy, going between Royce Hunt and Tristan Hope for the Sharks' third try.
Yeah, the Sharks, you could tell had a plan at going at Royce. Every time they went back to him, they looked for him to be what they call a late player back. So in the case where usually a tackle's made and a guy gets back to the line really, really late, they did that actually at forward parts of the field. But in that situation there, you could tell Royce actually walks back to the line. Again, body language isn't great. Usually that's an indicator for the attack. And yeah, I think Tristan probably needs to be a little bit more tighter there defensively. One of the things you always want to do as a defensive team is tell teams to go around you. There's no point, trying to defend what's set up in shape if someone's going to go straight through you. So yeah, pretty disappointing that would be. Obviously there's a lot of disappointing stuff at the back end of the game, but early in the game that would have been one of the most disappointing parts for Benji from my perspective.
What do you think his chat would have been at halftime? Because I wasn't out there, but Junior said that they had a huge breeze advantage. And you go in 18-10 down, and I think all 3 tries we conceded were off errors deep in our own end. So at surface level, you would have thought Benji and the boys might have been confident going into halftime they could turn it around.
I mean, usually it's sort of scenario by scenario how you approach a halftime, and teams have KPIs and standards that they want to set, and that would have been the emphasis of whatever they say at halftime would be off the back of, are they meeting those things? Are their KPIs good? Are the standards that they've set as a team, being met? And usually that'll dictate what you say to the team at halftime. You don't sort of worry too much about the big picture because, one, players don't listen that much at halftime, whether they want to admit it or not. And 2, it's just re-emphasising what the plan you've had all week is. So, yeah, it would have been an interesting conversation at halftime, but yeah, it obviously didn't work, did it?
No, I mean, we obviously didn't have our full deck of cards available, but I didn't even think the Sharks were great. Like they had missed 21 tackles by half time, and You speak about completions. We'd only completed at 15 of 21, which isn't terrible, but 71% certainly not the standard we've been setting.
No, it actually got worse as the game went on. So that was never going to make it easy for us. But like I said, I think that was just a lack of patience. There was a couple of, poor Tavana in the first half made some really poor errors. But things that you'd like to think that part of the experience and he'll learn from. But um, like I said, it was a really good lesson of dominating possession and understanding that what the Sharks did to us today is actually what we've been doing to a lot of teams in the past. But what we didn't do is we didn't show really good or any resilience really at the back end of the game, which was very disappointing.
We knew we were going to miss Appy Coruscant, and he's probably the one player we can't afford to miss given the makeup of our squad. But what did you make of the performance of Tristan Hope? Probably a tough afternoon for him. There was that one time midway through the first half where he went himself again on last time, I think, on last tackle. I think Senior said during the week he'd like to see him just keep the game a little bit simpler. He does throw the ball like a bullet pass a lot. Did you think he tried to overplay his hand a little bit, or is that harsh?
Oh, mate, at the end of the day, you want to encourage any player that comes into first grade and is filling in a role to, to be the best version of themselves they can be. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not here to sit here and judge him. I mean, we know he's not uppy. That's the first mistake we want to make is you can't compare him to him. The one thing I will say is I wanted to learn today. So one of the really good football teams, they're system teams. So what that means is they're teams that realistically, whoever's out and whoever's in, excuse me, you can replace talent, but you can't replace guys that do their job. And the really good teams, what they have is they always have guys that can come in and fill the role and do it to the best of their ability. But there's always going to be that one player who dictates your system. For Penrith, it's all obviously Nathan Cleary. Probably, the Roosters, it's James Tedesco. When Tedesco doesn't play, they're not a very good football side. For us, we've learned over the last couple of years, it's Appy Coruscant. That's 100% Appy Coruscant. He's the foundations of what our football looks like, and our system is built off the back of him. Not just in attack, it's more around his defence, to be honest.
Yeah, I think a number of our guys on the panel are talking about him sort of leading our line speed. Was it harder to judge our forward pack today? Because we'd obviously been winning a lot of territorial battles this year. I know we turned ball over, but did you think our forwards were not getting onto the ball or carrying the ball as strongly in that first half as it has been in the past, or was it just a matter of too many errors?
I don't know about strongly. I just think that the weight of possession, or maybe in the first half was a little bit different. I thought the first half we were fine. I thought excuse me. I'm sorry, guys. I am battling through this. I thought in that first half we actually played some pretty decent football. I thought defensively we were pretty good. I'll give the Sharks a little bit of credit. They exposed and they really went at Royce when he come on the field, and that created a little bit of ruck speed for them. But off the back of that, a lot of their stuff came on the back of our errors. So I thought we were fine in the first half with how we competed, both physically, both with the ball and without it. But yeah, in that second half, just the weight of possession and basically you have no steam. When your petrol tank's gone, your petrol tank's gone. It's that simple.
Tony Suko in that first half, I thought he made a couple of strong carries with the ball on that right-hand side.
Yeah, I mean, I think I said this last week, and it was, I was laughed at about the Sione Faino at hooker thing, but the problem, the issue you've got is when these guys come in and fill in, and, I'm not going to say they were horrendous, but it's about defence. It's about what they can do defensively, not so much what they can do with the football. Everybody can run a football hard if they really want to. Defensively, how you make decisions, your resilience, your ability to be able to defend errors, the ability to be able to make effort on effort defensively, they're the question marks you've got to have. And as the game went on, Tony started to really struggle with that. And you could tell the Sharks were always going to come after our right edge. And, yeah, I felt for him at the back end. I think he got a breather at the end, and Alex Seyfarth come on in the middle and then moved to the right edge of the back end, didn't he?
I'd sort of tuned out by that last 10 or 15 minutes, Coach. I'll have to have another look at that because it was a tough watch. It was not long ago. But that second half, it was obviously a bumbling second half. I think that first 10 or 15 minutes, the dam hadn't really broken. We kept the scoreline probably closer than it should have been. But it was just a similar theme, just a number of errors coming out of our own half. I think there were a couple by Sione and a couple more by Tavana.
Yeah, just basic stuff. And that's the sort of stuff that, and I didn't talk about it with you guys. I talked about it more with snaz on the Shark Cast pod I did earlier in the week, but Cronulla are the best front running side of the competition. If you give them possession, they're actually going to dominate any team. So, yeah, I wasn't surprised from the perspective of the points they were able to put on. But when you give them that weight of possession, it's always never going to go easy with that team, especially at home on a Sunday afternoon.
Bit of a snowball effect, like you say, but were you disappointed at times just with the lack of discipline? There was a penalty for dissent in the first half. I'm not 100% sure who it was, and then the second half, Taylor May got penalised at hooker in that last tackle, or at dummy half, I should say. Such as some things that can go against you when things are snowballing.
No, not really, because I think that sort of stuff. Um, it told me the players were still competing and wanted to compete. That is the one thing I will say at the back end of the game. I thought that we had a little bit of shit about us, which I didn't mind. That we were still trying to compete. We weren't just going to roll over to these blokes, which the scoreboard says we did 100%. But the way some of the boys I thought really kept competing to the end. I take a little bit from that as well. So yeah, I'm not. I mean, the Taylor May one. It's a Braden Trindle pushes him. I mean, he doesn't just push him for the sake of it. So if we really want to go down that path, we could sort of say, well, what sort of decision was that from their perspective? But it is what it is, and you get on with it.
Last 25 minutes, Coach, the scoreline blows out, probably 4 or 5 tries to Cronulla, probably the majority of them shifting left, which they've been very good at this year. Was there anything you're disappointed with in terms of the structure there or resolve, or it's just a combination of the weight of possession and the Sharks' pressure?
Yeah, it looked like an edge that hasn't played together defensively, which is understandable. But yeah, I think that the question marks over some of those boys, especially Jock at 3-man, like he had no trust in his inside, which is not unusual if you've never played with that back row. I mean, I don't know, has he played any cup this year? Did he play cup with Tony Suka? But yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I think just they really picked us apart in that back end of the game. Stafford obviously isn't at his best at the moment, and that's disappointing for us. We probably need someone with his sort of senior, I guess, skills, you call it. We need him to be a little bit better in those situations there, and I thought he was pretty poor today on that right edge, and that's not something that is a newsflash to anybody from today's performance. But poor Tino, got caught out a couple of times, but also just missed some basic tackles. I think there was one on Nero where he does a good job to jam in, but he just misses the contact, and Nero just bounces off and scores. So yeah, a little bit of I'll call it New South Wales Cup type defence there on the right edge in that second half, and yeah, we were punished for it.
What sort of message do you think, like Benji'd be trying to send there when things are snowballing and you've got a lack of experience out there without Appy, without Adam Dewey? Is it just simply try and complete your next set, or just go back to basics?
No, when you're in that position as a coach, I like to watch and learn. I'm watching all the habits. I'm watching the guys that are still competing. I'm watching the guys that are falling back into the systems that we've practiced and trying to change the game together, not so much trying to do it on their own defensively and solve problems defensively on their own. So in my world, I normally sit there and like to watch. You could see there Benji on the sideline. He was just watching. He was observing. He wasn't overthinking it and getting too carried away with it. Yeah, it's just those days happen. A lot of football teams have copped that sort of punishment in the past. We're not going to be the first. We won't be the last.
Anything else, Coach, from that second half you wanted to point out? Otherwise, I'll just throw anyone there. It's hard to give out a 3-2-1 when you lose 52 points to 10. But anyone you thought was strong out there today or had a go? We mentioned Jerome was one of our better players.
I thought the majority of them had a go. To say they didn't have a go, I think it's just the lack of execution and a little bit of disappointment around the resilience they started to show at the back end of the game. I just think potentially for some of them that when that sort of stuff's happening and you've got guys that are not regular first graders, you probably want to fall back to the things that we do really, really well. If we can do that, well, then all we're going to ask is those guys to do their job. But when you put them against the ropes like that, especially that right edge, and you ask them to defend consistently, well, yeah, it's probably going to be tough for them. The reality of it is that whole right edge, maybe not Stafford. I think we probably expect better from Stafford. That right edge is a New South Wales Cup right edge. So, I think when you've got injuries, and I talked about this with the Broncos, when we played the Broncos the other week, the one place you don't want to have injuries is on your edges, because most teams train really well. I mean, we've seen when we played Newcastle, and who was the other team Canberra last week. Like when your edges are disconnected,
Mm.
well, teams are going to score some really simple tries, which like we did last week and like we did against Newcastle. So yeah, that's the one side of that's the one part of the field you want to be a little bit more stronger with, and that's your edges, especially in D.
Coach, you've obviously been in a lot of winning and losing dressing rooms. When you cop a loss like that, does the coach have much to say after the game, or is it more a case of you go back to work on Monday or Tuesday and address some of the things out of the game with individuals or with the team that you didn't like?
No, it's probably an individual thing this week. The coaches will sit there and they'll watch every little part of the game with respect to their roles as coaches. So, the attack coach, the Heino who does all our effort stuff. I think Johnny Morris does our D. So they'll watch every single part of the game and they'll break it down to all the things that the boys went against, our systems and our processes that we normally do, and they'll try to address that. And from a general perspective with Benji, I think what he'll do is once that's done, he'll want to flush it and then start again next week. But what we can't do is we can't use these as excuses. These injuries, all these issues that we're having at the moment. All these other teams are going through it as well, so we can't use it as an excuse at all.
I'll get to what you'd potentially do in terms of changes because we're going to have to make a couple of changes because of the injuries. But just in terms of the week of training, what would be the 1 or 2 or 3 main bullet points on the board for the team that you'd like to see during the week?
Build confidence all over again. I mean, that's going to be the key. I don't think any of this has got to do with football. I mean, we only missed, I think, if I looked at the stats, we only missed like 28 tackles in the game. So, it's just confidence. It's believing in who we are and what we've been able to build so far because we haven't achieved anything. But, we get an opportunity just like other teams. The Sharks, scored 52 points today. They conceded something like 48 last week against the Cowboys.
Yep.
So the beauty of this game is in 7 days' time we get to go down to Melbourne against a depleted Melbourne side or a down on confidence Melbourne side, which is probably not going to be the ideal time to go down and play them, especially off the back of some of the emotional stuff that's happened with them over the last 7 days and getting back home and playing at home. It's going to be a really big challenge, but we get the opportunity to take our story down there and see what we can do as well.
What did you make of the going forward, you'd assume Adam wouldn't be there next week, although he made that miracle return against the Warriors a week after he didn't finish the game against South. So we'll wait and see. But looking potentially at the next month, do you like that combination of Madden at 7 or Luai at 6, or would you be looking at someone like Latu?
No, you'd go with Jock initially. Look, you know how big of a fan I am of Latu, so it's a tough one. But I think Jock has earned his opportunity to sort of start a game, train all week there, and try to build that combination with, excuse me, with Jerome. That'd be what I do from a Hearts perspective. At least next week.
And the hooking role, do you give Tristan Hope as long as he played today? He played extended minutes today, or do you try and share it?
Well, I think today that was purely. It seemed to me
Injury.
like I'm presuming that he wasn't going to play 80, but once the Dewey change was made with Jock, it seemed to me like that they had no option but in that rotation. And I know it's easy to sit there at home and people are saying, "Oh, they should put Skelton on," but what do you do to the poor middles and make them play 80 minutes of getting absolutely bashed up the middle of with no possession? So it's not easy to manage your bench when the change that got made early in the game happens because it changes everything. It throws everything. It throws your interchange because obviously you got to use a change which you don't schedule to use early in the game. So but from my perspective, look, I don't think there's anybody that you can bring in that's going to be better than what we've got. Like I don't. To me, Stafford is still better than Patrick Herbert. As crazy as that sounds, I think he's still better than Patrick Herbert. Obviously, the Newcastle game was the Newcastle game, but defensively, Patrick Herbert is just as bad as Stafford at the moment. So I'm not going with Patrick Herbert in front of Stafford, and I'm sticking with Tavana again next week. Like that, it's fine. We're in a position now where we get to challenge ourselves next week and see how we can handle it.
Is that a thing, though, with Tavana that Benji would have to ask him how he's going? Because that sort of game can rock a young kid. I mean, we saw Makasini didn't have as many errors in that Brisbane game, but he decided to rest him after that.
Yeah, I think that was a different scenario. Plus, Makasini was injured. It's not like he hasn't.
True.
I mean, he hasn't played for 2 weeks since then. So, No, it's just a judgment call from Benji's perspective, really.
One other forced change will obviously be we'll get KPP back, but I'm assuming Samuela's going to be out. So, one, would you play KPP back on his right side, or would you switch it up there and potentially put Suko on the left?
No, I think you put Alex Seyfarth on the left because
Okay.
he's played
Yep.
quite a bit of left back row. Whereas I think Suka's more of a right back rower. So, yeah, I mean, they might. I think Suka's actually played a little bit of left back row at New South Wales Cup this year. So, yeah, again, I don't think there's a right or wrong option in that. I mean, they're both, six of one, half a dozen the other. The only reason sometimes I think today why they played Suka in front of Seyfarth is Seyfarth has got that bit more versatility coming off the bench. Um, so, yeah.
Jerome Luai, coach, let's change tack because you were chomping at the bit during the week. You saw our podcast on Tuesday, and I don't think you were too happy with some of the things we said. I'm always glass half empty, so I was probably being a doom merchant, and Junior was pretty fired up. But I think you said, I don't want to quote you, but you said this could be a win-win out of all of it. And the next 4 or 5 days, we've had 3 re-signings. So first off, what was your reaction to Jerome signing for PNG and your overall takeaway from it?
Well, my first reaction was good on him. At the end of the day, I love this club. I love rugby league. I love you guys. I love the players. I love Benji, but I love my mum and dad and I love my family a lot more.
Mm.
So the reality is that's what I say is first of all good on him for making that decision. I think that if you put in that situation and what he said in his press conference was right on the money. Like obviously all the tax-free stuff and the money, was probably what created the whole interest in the start. But he needed to go over there and confirm that that's what he wanted to leave and that's what he wanted to do. And he took his wife and his son over. So, they made a decision as a family, which was really, really good from their perspective. And I say good on him.
You weren't hitting the panic button on Wednesday like me because there was a little bit of, I know Junior talked about potential butterfly effect and the fact that Jerome's so tight with some of the other boys here and they could follow him. But next few days, we've made some brilliant re-signings.
Look, it fascinates me the way, and I get it, but it fascinates me when people think that, excuse me, other grown-ups are going to be influenced by other grown-ups, especially grown-ups with families. Like at the end of the day, the players are going to make the decisions for themselves and their families. And that's rightfully so. Like the club's got to come when it comes to that sort of stuff. Like everyone's starting to make fun of Jerome and Team First and all that rubbish. No, your family comes first always.
How much of his job is done here, Coach? I mean, he's been here 18 months. I think it's fair to say, just by watching the team play this year, that he's completely changed the culture of our club. I don't think Jerome would see that as a pass mark because he sets really high standards. He said, I think when he joined, Richo, I'm here for rings. So what can he achieve in the next 18 months here?
Well, you can achieve whatever we want to achieve as a group. So, but obviously a little bit of good luck's going to have to go our way as well. But yeah, look, yeah, I think he's too scrutinised, way too much by our own fans in particular. Like I had people already telling me today, like, couldn't notice he's out there. I'm like, well, you didn't obviously watch the first
Mm.
25, 30 minutes because he set up all our tries. And yeah, there's probably a reason you didn't notice him because his side of the field wasn't giving away tries. So yeah, I think he's heavily scrutinised for some reason and whatever it is. But yeah, mate, if we get a little bit of luck and we keep some guys on the field and we don't have any serious injuries and we can, absorb this, especially this next couple of weeks, well, who knows what we can do.
I promise I won't keep you too much longer, Coach. Last couple of minutes because I can see you battling through there. This is Darren Lockyer, like your voice is turning into over there. But
Crazy.
those re-signings, they're huge for the club because the May brothers, they've been such a hit since they've come, and Jareem, obviously a lot of speculation around him the last 6 months or so. But for those 3 guys to commit, I guess it shows what Benji Marshall's building and the faith they have in him and the culture that they can potentially, take over from Jerome and become those senior players.
Yeah, again, I'm sure those guys made a decision based on their own families and what they wanted for themselves, which you've got to do in that situation. But yeah, like I said, there's an opportunity for us as a club to build whatever we want our club to look like for the next, 4 or 5 years. And having those guys commit to us for the next 4 or 5 years are probably the most important players we wanted committed. Obviously Samuel is another big one, I think, for us. Well, I'm not too fussed about Latu. I think Latu will stay unless something drastic happens. But yeah, I think we're in a good position squad wise. I think it's just now nailing the rest of our squad, the sort of players 20 to 30 now, and getting that part of our roster a little bit upgraded. And that's not so much from external, but more so internal. But all this experience these guys are getting, I think is going to help us.
Last two questions, Coach. First one on the halves. Who's in the box seat to be that half long term, or is it just like any competitive environment? It's you got Jock Madden there and Latu, who could potentially be the main man going forward alongside Adam.
Well, I think the biggest thing about any business is never being sort of fixated on one particular plan. I mean, what do they say? The puzzle sometimes can always change, and there can always be opportunities for something else. I mean, how do you know that tomorrow morning? I mean, I'm sure South Sydney didn't have Payne Haas planned to be coming to them this year until he knocked on their door and said, "Oh, I want to come play with you guys." So you always keep the option open. I've never hid away from the fact that how big of a fan I am of Latu, so that's going to be interesting to see what that plan is for them moving forward from a club perspective in regards to Latu. Because for me, he's my long-term half.
Final one, Coach. You talk about blocks of four. That's 2 blocks of 4 done now. 3 and 1 in the first phase, and 2 and 2 just then. But this next 4 is going to be tricky because we're going to have a lot of guys out. Are you judging it off a win-loss thing, or are you purely looking at habits?
Still always habits. The reality is, though, obviously, wins and losses are going to impact us season-wise and confidence-wise. So, yes, that's very important. But, excuse me, that's the job of our coaches and our coaching staff and our leaders to make sure that part of us doesn't drop. And I'm sure they're more than capable of doing that. So, it's just challenge. It's challenges. It's more and more challenges. I mean, I obviously being at South at the moment up here, we're sort of feeling the effects of what the Broncos are going through, and watching them going through what they're going through at the moment is crazy. So you can use it as an excuse if you really wanted to, but we can't be that football side.
All right, Coach. Well, thank you so much for that tough carry and getting your way through that 35 or 40 minutes because the cough meter was going up over the hundreds there. So I hope you get a day off work tomorrow, mate. Is that possible or not?
It's a public holiday in Queensland tomorrow, so that's a win for me.
There you go. Queensland, perfect one day, or it's a beautiful one day, perfect the next. That used to be the saying, doesn't it? So,
thank God it's a public holiday tomorrow. I need that to recover.
All right. Thank you, Coach. We'll see you next week.
Cheers, guys.